I think we have defended it to the extent that we have these recommendations where it gives us the consensus in exactly what we did and the dates. We have that right down the line. Really appreciated that again.
Again.
That's what we're. If we can come to a consensus for item B, then we can add to this list of 5, which from what it's kind of sounding like that the board would like to see phases, which we could add to that. And then that can supplement the questions for item B about the standalone or combined. That kind of sounds like where we're going, that board, it sounds like we want a standalone amphitheater. However, you're in fear it may jeopardize some of the plans.
Right.
Well, I think more so than just these details, our number 1 is budget that we talked about. Mm-hmm. Our number 2 is going back to the phased approach and not to this limited approach. And then we get into all the details of things only if we get past 1 and 2.
Right. We've never been let in on the cost. This building is still over budget, but what does it cost to build this building? Build the building we want.
3 buildings.
Recommended back in July. What does it cost to build that? We have never been told.
I think the difference just in terms of square footage is that originally we looked at 60,000 square feet under air, and we've now been presented with 13,000 square feet under air. That's the conversation in my position.
So
Got that.
Exactly.
Roger's not here to answer.
That's right.
You know, it's very vague. What Roger's
Exactly.
So, you know, we need some clear answers on a lot of things.
That would be.
Don't have any dollar.
Exactly what the prices of it are.
I don't have that answer for you, Beth, but we could look into it.
I mean, at least if we have a ballpark.
We don't have any answers.
I think Paul has a pretty.
But we don't.
Right.
So,
But I think Paul does, and I think so. We need. By the way, where is that? Are we going to get that? We're pushing 8 million,
No.
which is a long way from 5 and
5.5 to 7.5 makes a difference. Bet.
Do we want to add that to the recommendations and then we can move forward with the amphitheater? That kind of sounds like, can't do it for you guys though. Either make a motion to add to the list of the redevelopments. Also, we do have agenda item B, whether it's a standalone amphitheater or combined.
I think we've determined that we wanted to stand alone.
It'd be ideal if we could have a motion, yes.
Make a motion. Recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
We're having mic issues evidently. Nobody can hear anything.
Is not everyone being heard on this meeting?
Was I heard?
Has no one been heard?
I don't know.
For our tube meeting?
I don't know. They've replaced hollies and they've replaced
Leaves.
leaves.
Yeah, everything's coming through the,
Good now.
we had a motion, there was a second?
Yeah, we have a motion and we have a
Okay, I
second.
ask that you call the question.
Is there, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0. Correct? Okay.
I have another motion.
Okay.
Move that committee at the joint meeting on the 11th of this month ask town manager and the council for a clear explanation of the cost of building the community center and clear explanation or clear answer on where the $1.5 million can't be used to Times Square will go, where the money we were told savings at Bayside Park will go.
You're talking about the cost?
I'm moving that we ask for clear answers on those two questions.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
I actually just have a question. I know we should second before we do a question, but are you only referring to the community center or are you referring to the 3 buildings?
Well, okay, we need to talk about that because at this point, I'm very concerned about I personally am very concerned about the community center saving, getting what we wanted, getting what we planned for the community.
Okay, and not their modified plan, but our original.
Yeah,
And I
the
think we
original
need to make that
building.
very clear.
The building that we requested.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the clarification.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Barbara? Thank you. Further discussion?
So just a question on that. So I understand the budget part will be the first piece of it. But then do we also include the phase plan in that motion, or is that a separate one?
I was going to do a separate motion.
Okay, so we're going to have 2 motions out of this.
Yes.
Okay. So what we're dealing with now is the budget costs. That's what was your request.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the savings from the other 2 projects. $1.5 million we were told of from Times Square, and the possible $500,000 savings we were told about from Bayside Park.
Okay.
Asking for clear answers on where that money will go, and how would I put that? A request that money be reallocated to to Bay Oaks.
Bay Oaks. Further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Did you have a second motion to?
I have a third.
Yeah, okay, that's all right.
I move that, how I would put this. I move that this committee requests town council consider building our July, the plan that we developed and presented in July in phases. At the town council of Fort Myers Beach adopt the concept of building out Bay Oaks in phases. The understanding that the current council still has 3 more years. I'm not sure it's not 4, but I'm not sure when the 4-year kicked in, whether it kicked in last March.
I think it did.
Did it?
I think it did, yes.
So with the understanding that this town council still has 3 more years office. So that's my motion.
Hey, do we have a second?
Second.
Aaron? You? Further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0 again. Thank you.
I think we already, before my motions, we adopted a motion to stand on the amphitheaters, standalone amphitheater,
I
right?
think we voted on that already.
I think we did that.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
I think we've certainly provided town staff and council with a clear direction forward based on these specific votes and our recommendations.
I think we've made ourselves pretty clear.
I think it's a shame that I know back in July we were really revved up about our plan, concept, vision, and I'm not convinced that it's over. I'm not the great optimist, but I'm not convinced that it's. I'm not convinced we get most of, if not all, of what we wanted. It's going to take effort on people of Fort Myers Beach and the organizations. That's a question I had, Allison. At this joint meeting, one of the council people, I think it was Ray Murphy, said, this council meeting, that this is an opportunity to bring the organizations together. Come to this meeting. We invited Chamber, some of the other organizations on the beach to come to this meeting. And shouldn't we be proactive in this, trying to bring these people and organizations into this, get proactive?
I have the recommendations from the last
Kickoff.
the kickoff with Lee County, the board, Park and Rec,
Well, I'm not so interested in the Lee County, but I mean, we have organizations on this island who, we've already heard from the president of the chamber. How about the chamber board coming down here and getting involved? How about the women's club? How about the, you know, it just seems to me that these people are really behind this, and come out. Come down there and be seen at these council meetings. Absolutely.
Well, all of these meetings are open to the public.
Absolutely. Anytime council meets,
They can just listen, hear, or on YouTube. They have choices, but there's no public comment.
And it's not just those people from the various organizations. It's the users of the current Bay Oaks. It's the frustration that our, tennis courts aren't adequate. It's the frustration that the weight room is too small. It's the frustration that the gym is obsolete. Where are those individuals that can come and support what our recommendations are?
yeah.
I agree with you, Lee, 100%, but we need to have those people, not just us, because obviously we're speaking to the choir here, but to those people that this affects mostly.
Sounds like of Bay Oaks.
There you go.
They can support it
Exactly.
and help raise make these changes.
That's exactly right.
You bet.
So
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, I don't know that the meeting with the town council next week is the place for that yet, because we still are trying to get out of page 15 and back to page 10 with the council. Then
Right.
the next step, if we can get consensus from the town council on that, what do these 3 phases look like, or 2 phases, or whatever we come up with based on the budget, then getting Friends of Bay Oaks active again, getting all those other people that supported Bay Oaks and have memberships and everything else that used it, getting involved from that side of things. I think that would be my process. and
Time for
timeline.
that.
The timeline.
Unfortunately, there is no Friends of Bay Oaks.
Well, not yet, but we could resurrect
That's
it.
going to
That's
take
the whole
time. That's
idea.
going to take time. There are good-sized memberships in these other organizations. They're already there and fairly active. So, I just know it's kind of a handicap that various councils don't allow input in kind of meetings. I think it's a shame. Being in a town this size, it ought to happen every time. The public wants to speak, let the public speak. If the organizations want to speak, let them speak. If they want to chip in to a discussion like we're having in this joint meeting, let them discuss. Maybe they've got some ideas nobody's thought of. Maybe they've got some money nobody knows about. I just think it's a shame that they're not allowed to do that. But just showing up, when politicians see the chamber coming in the room and the women
Force.
They take a second breath, and I'm a big believer in that. I've seen it work. I've seen it happen. I've seen publicly elected boards change overnight because certain people showed up. And I'm sorry it doesn't happen here because it should. That's the way it is.
Well, I think it did with the safety council, and when
Yes.
we had all of the issues.
Bayside conversation.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It did. And
Well, and the last time, the vibe I got from what Roger said when he stood up there was, it was almost condescending, but he said, we don't care if you want an ice skating rink, if you want this or that. So almost I'm saying that they don't really care what, it just has to fit a certain, type of budget, which is back to the beginning, we need to know what that is. You know, and I think there's a lot of people to reach out to. I mean, Bay Oaks there's Little League, there's, you know, seniors that use it, there's soccer, my son played baseball there for years, you know. There were cookouts there. There's a lot of different, you know, it's not just a couple organizations we could reach out to. There's a lot. But I think the really important thing is getting it out there, because I didn't even know any of this was going on like a year ago.
Wow.
Right,
I didn't know
until you got
that
involved.
this was all happening with Bay Oaks until I walked in here. You know, so I think it's really important to get it out to the community. Even, you know, I know we can't fundraise, but having some kind of, you know, cookout, barbecue, whatever, to just say, like, this is what the ideas are, and, you know, different things to just make it known to the community, because that's very important for this.
I think one of the disadvantages that we have is horrible timing with the demise of the sandpaper. You know, the sandpaper was sort of the town crier, if you will. Gary Mooney
Exactly.
really presided over, I mean, didn't preside, but he attended every meeting of like the BORCAB, CELCAB, council meetings, and would report on that to the public, so the public became informed and would be able to then respond with their opinion. And they don't necessarily have to physically come to a meeting, of course that's optimal, but they can always email every council member every day, all
Yep.
day, if that's what they choose to do. So each individual citizen has the right and the opportunity to contact each of their council people. The citizens are in charge ultimately, voters specifically. And I think that's also the next step.
Yep.
He said yeah.
Absolutely.
And Ed
We've
Ryan is a
done
huge
that
supporter
twice.
of ours.
Yes.
Huge supporter for this.
He is a huge supporter. I agree.
Ed
Ryan, the guy that runs
You've
Shop
been on
Radio.
that show twice. Ray and I were on, and then you.
Karen and I were on.
You two were on, so.
On again,
Exactly.
talk about the progress and.
And I think, you know, obviously we thought that the message had been conveyed, both with Lee and with Karen with our interviews. But then this October thing came around and kind of slammed us and said, wow, this is a big surprise. And then, of course, you know, the holidays came. So I think maybe now will be a good time to put this back on the front burner with Beach Talk Radio. And that is a conversation definitely now worth having.
They've certainly been supportive.
Yes, they have been very supportive of.
Well, maybe we could even be on there on Saturday before the Monday meeting and people come to the
I'm in.
actual town council. I'm in.
I know Ed would be very happy to have us back.
Yep, he would. But anytime we wanted to be on to talk about this, we could.
Yep.
You two want to go again?
We were just waiting for the right time.
Yeah,
You
this is the
bet.
time.
So,
I think that's great this Saturday. Sure.
I'm gonna tag
Yeah.
along, so.
Oh, absolutely. I think maybe we can have whoever we want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can check with Ed or, you know, have him reach out to us, or I'll reach out to him, find out if this Saturday is open, and then we'll go from there.
Actually, I have, is there a question with regard to sunshine law in this case? Because one
we have two people?
one advisory board member cannot talk to another advisory board member, and they can't
project.
That's right.
communicate in any way. So by two of our BORCAB members talking to Beach Talk Radio, that's not allowed.
No, because you would be discussing things.
Something that's coming
We
before a
could do
vote.
different times. We could do, someone does 10 minutes, another person does 10 minutes, so we're not talking together.
To one another.
We're talking
another.
to an interviewer.
By the way, Ed is listening, and it's open invitation.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ed.
Saturday.
Thank you, Ed.
Well,
Barbara, let me have the clerk's office, Sarah can work with the clerk's office to verify for you all about that.
Yeah, well, we need a review on the sunshine law.
Sunshine, yes, indeed.
it's not that complicated, trust me. You can go down there, two members, and talk about what you've already done. You can go down there and request people to come out to the meetings. Encourage people to come out to the meetings. Those aren't issues you're going to vote on. You've already voted on what you've done. So it's not a violation of sunshine. Believe me, I worked a lot with the sunshine law as a reporter.
He's the one that helped create the sunshine laws for the state of
Florida. You can't discuss issue that you know or have reasonable belief to believe that it's going to be coming to a vote. And you can't do that. You certainly can discuss asking people to come to the meetings, telling them what you've already done. You can explain your vision to them. Not a violation of sunshine.
Well, and Ed says we can have it 10-minute intervals for as long as we want, however we need to set it up. He's listening to our meeting, so.
Good,
Thank you, Ed.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Have any other recommendations that we wanted to add to this? Because we won't have this much time for our January 11th meeting. I'll update with the standalone that was voted on, that was also on the agenda, and then the additional motions that Lee put forth. We can add to that list as well.
I think those additional motions need to be 1 and 2, and the rest of the detail follows.
Well, the phases was one vote. A separate amphitheater was another vote. The request for square footage and budget for the 3 conceptual buildings was a vote. And the reallocation of funds we're recommending to council was another vote.
Right.
So we actually have 4 votes currently.
So actually, the budget is 1, the reallocation is 2. Phases is 3. And 4 is the amphitheater then, along with all these other items.
So you're thinking that having another vote requesting input and support from the community needs to be, I don't think that needs to be a vote.
I wanted to make sure that we were finished with this agenda item. If there's anything else that needed to be added as far as the amphitheater.
No, I don't have, I mean, I would love for it to not only include, professional amphitheater, but also with the required sound and lighting equipment.
Lighting, yeah.
And I know they're going to scream about budget, but just let us know what it is so we know what to do.
Yes.
Yes.
But we may not even.
Well, actually, they say it's so much now more improved than it was even a couple of years ago.
Really?
It was awful.
That would save some money.
They can't come through your shoes.
That would be a good question to ask DRMP, because DRMP actually recommended this particular artificial turf, which was substantially more expensive.
About it, but I can switch fields.
Because it was so hot.
Because it was so hot.
Wow.
It's dangerous for the reps.
I've heard the same thing.
Allison, are you aware of that? I mean, do you know if there's a
I
difference?
don't, that would be DMRP, and right now it's not on the table.
That's okay, but if
Official
it ever comes
yeah.
up,
It's not,
we need,
yeah.
Yeah.
we may want to.
You don't need, that was one of the first things you don't
That we
need
tossed.
artificial turf. What you do need, and it's talked against at the council meeting, what you need is clay tennis courts. Because you've got an awful lot of seniors out here who like to play tennis, and
yes.
Joanne Shamp was right. It's
You
breaking
bet.
their knees, and so I think we ought to continue to push for clay courts. I don't think we should give up on that.
No, I don't think we should give up on that either.
Part of the diversity on this island is the number of seniors you have out here. Joanne and her husband go somewhere.
They go to
off
Bonita. They go to Bonita.
Go to
play
Bonita to
tennis.
play tennis because these courts here are just awful. Here's something else that came up at the last council meeting that we're kind of fighting against here. One of the councilmen said there's not enough utilization now at Bay Oaks, and replacing the old gym is misguided. Well, that's a contradiction. One of the reasons there's not enough utilization is because you got a broken down 36-year-old gym, basketball court. But what's there to, and you've got a very diverse population out here, most of whom don't play basketball and don't want to hear all the yelling and screaming that takes place in that gym when they're trying to play cards or doing other things. So I didn't understand that argument at all. As far as the lack of utilization that keeps, that's exactly what this committee is trying to overcome. To provide a place that people will want to come to, can't wait to get to, and hours there. So I don't understand that argument, but it keeps coming up.
I
think we can defend our plan against this lack of, it somehow implies that, well, because you don't have any real numbers coming now, why should we spend all this money? Because then they will come. Then you're giving the community something that you haven't given them now.
If you build it, they will come.
So, but that argument is out there, and I've heard it come up a couple times at council by this, and if it comes up again, I'm going to respond.
And it's funny,
Make
before I
no
even
small
joined,
plans.
Go ahead. Before I even joined this committee, I was saying that to my husband. I'd say, Bay Oaks is such a great big chunk of land.
Right.
Exactly.
Why does it sit there unused, 96% of the time? And I think that's what, I was excited when I joined this, because there is so much potential for this community to be more alive, more, rejuvenated, a place for people to go. That I talk to women that are seniors and they come down here for Snowbird, and they look for things to do.
Exactly.
They look for card games and yoga classes, and so I think there's
classes.
And just a place to congregate, to have other people to talk to. A lot of people are widows, or they just don't have a big group. So I think there's so much potential that people may not even realize. So as Lee said, to say that it's not utilized enough, well, that's the whole point of rejuvenating this whole thing.
Exactly.
So.
Well, there you go, Holly. I think you should tell the council that. I think that you should enunciate that to this council.
I don't think any of us will be shy in that meeting, at that
Well, this
meeting.
kind of committee isn't shy.
And it's amazingly unified too.
I really
which I
enjoy
think is
being here
remarkable,
because this committee is
right?
not shy. And I think the council knows that now. Certainly Roger does.
Well, and, we had worked on it for a long time. It isn't something that was an overnight idea.
3 years,
I mean,
Betty.
You bet. So, and all of this
4 years.
gives support to what we have done and what we have tried to do. Okay, Sarah, that goes back to that redevelopment recommendation list.
Yes. Well, I'll update with the motion that we made about the standalone, and then the additional 3, the cost of the building, can the money be reallocated, and then the phases, I'll include those with the recommendations in the list that we mentioned.
Will you send that out to us then?
Will do.
Allison, you apparently, I don't know, last summer met with Roger, according to Roger, you had agreed the building redesigned was adequate for the programs you want to provide. Is that right?
It was a minimum requirement for lunches and things those requirements were made sure that adequate for that.
Is that sufficient? Does that take into account a future growth in programs and people?
Yeah.
I mean, you already know what the future is going to bring for.
As much as we could, Lee.
That's my problem. That's my question. As much as you could.
Yeah, as much as we could, we did. A little over what we needed for our team. Those, as well as our club rec after school. And to be able to fit, I think, how many people for.
Yeah, I want to say 120 off the top of my head.
And we did what we thought was the
best guess.
From
Okay.
years ago when Bridge used to be at what I thought was a high point, it was almost a chapel. I took that and doubled it and then kind of added on a few extra.
You got to get them back from the church,
Yes.
right? So, okay. Allison, would you agree that a larger building would present maybe a better plan and vision for future growth?
I really,
More space?
That's really not up to me to or have an opinion. My role is in the exercises. I can guess at
Community as it is now.
to be a public servant and to make sure that information goes on to bodies that need to. That's how I have tried to make sure that our program needs they have.
But one of the things that was cut, Apple, that we had discussed and really, I think, unanimously would have liked to have seen in our building is the kitchen.
Culinary kitchen.
Culinary kitchen
Right.
for
Community.
cooking classes. That was cut.
Well, actually, I think Roger made the recommendation that for all practical purposes, when culinary classes would be scheduled, that portable equipment could be brought in to serve the same purpose for maybe 1/10 of the cost. And so that could be a stopgap solution until such time as a full-fledged culinary center could be built in that existing space if the space was appropriately provided. So, and I think that is a good point. I mean, I think the idea of bringing in cooktops, that's what happens with a lot of culinary programs in the
There's
country
enough
today.
square
So,
footage to
yes,
begin with.
That's that multi-purpose.
exactly. Having the footage eventually to build that should we want to, but in the meantime,
Right.
over the next 10 years, why not bring this portable equipment in? I think
Certainly.
Roger raised a valid point.
Did meet the minimum staff and the programs to be able to do. Because right now we just.
I think a catering kitchen was going to be
that
at the
was-
very least what we would have as an absolute
That was
must.
what we have to rent.
Yeah, no, definitely, at least a
was
catering
something.
kitchen. Are you saying that that was not put into this consolidated?
Yes, that was the requirement that right now with our programs.
Right, you can't currently, but this is in the new plan?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I think that was,
That makes sense. Clarification.
I don't know. How much does it cost to rent all that stuff?
well, that's what we're doing now, but we can put in the catering kitchen and have it permanent.
Well, if we get this windfall, money from the other two projects that have the culinary kitchen.
They're only talking about, I mean, yeah, anyway,
Right.
we don't want
Yeah.
to get into
We can add
minutia.
it to the list for the discussion. on
I
the
just
list.
would, I just am really big on the cooking class.
I don't think that's been eliminated, is the deal.
Be one of the students. I want to teach gumbo making.
I'll be your first student. I don't know.
In looking at the order of business for the council meeting on the 11th, and I guess I'm just hoping, but right under A1, budget, it says currently 5.5. Think there's any chance that they're, I mean, it doesn't say that that's just solid number. I mean, it just says currently. So the motion that we passed a little bit ago that Lee had, asking about budget, that other 1.5 and the half at Bayside. I guess I'm just hoping that currently could have a little more meaning than just the way it's put there.
Some wiggle room.
Yeah, it just, I guess that's what I'm looking for, or is a little wiggle room in there.
And understanding what that entails and how we can move that needle.
Yes, exactly.
In November 18th, Paul of DMRMP did mention that he was currently looking at the modified plan, and he said, to date, we have altered the design and cut the project into smaller phases that can be built over time, while to the greatest extent possible. But we are still about 25% over budget. We are looking at alternative materials, construction techniques, and site planning adjustments, and also including money from projects like Bayside Park. Get this project into a position that the town can afford to construct. So we all received a copy of that. I think when he talked about phases, he was talking about, ultimately maybe adding an additional building, but it was certainly not in keeping with our original concept plan, which of course was our issue. But that said, if what he offered in October to council, that modified plan, still needs an additional 25% over the budget to make it happen, that already begins to eat into that additional funding that may come.
Right.
Bit of a reality check.
Right.
Wait a minute. Run that by me again.
The modified plan that he presented to council in October, presented that ostensibly to meet the 5.5 budget, but he also recognized that even with the value engineering that they put in, they're still about 25% over that $5.5 million budget.
What happens to that?
The modified plan is over the 5.5 budget.
Exactly.
Are we going to get a breakdown of how much each thing
But you lost
costs
me.
for that?
I
So
don't
we
think
can
they
see
think
what
we
they're
need to
saying?
know
We
that.
haven't seen that breakdown.
That's what I mean, so we can see why it's costing that much and where that's,
Where that money is.
yeah. I mean, they're giving us a number.
Every time we ask them, the plan is really
Yeah, well. Oh, can we get that or no?
request it from D.
You can give a breakdown of each section and how much it's going to cost and.
I think that was also in our vote, right? I mean, that was the
I
budget.
think the
We
breakdown was
wanted-
in the vote.
For example, they
Understand.
presented one building at 13,000 square feet. We conceptualized three buildings at what was 30,000 square feet.
Right.
That's the disconnect in reality.
Right.
So not just the
Exactly.
community center, but the athletic center and the welcome center. So
Right.
if we say, okay, if we're going to compromise, we're going to work together with you guys, we really want to make this happen, we still are thinking about phases, and if we want to eliminate the welcome center, because that's not a top priority, let's look at these two buildings, right? The athletic center and the community center,
Right.
and the separate amphitheater, and then look at those prices.
I'm still trying to catch up on what you and Karen said. So, let's say we get all that money, $1 million from the other two projects. How is community center still over budget?
Because it is. He admitted that with the statement that he made in November.
Well, it's over budget at the 5.5 allotted.
Yeah, it's
If we
over
would
budget
get the
at
other 2
5.5.
million, that's probably the over budget of 25% to do the modified building, but we don't want the modified building.
No,
Exactly. Yeah,
no.
So
We want our
Right,
athletic center
okay,
and our
that's right.
community
No,
center.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm having problems with that, but,
Don't we all?
let's remember what our mayor said, though. We got the money, we don't have to have car washes. We kick in a little extra there, Mayor, from the town
Budget.
offers?
Well, and here's the other alternative. If this becomes a community conversation and we want this phased project, and if it is a $15 million project and we want it in phases, we then have to go perhaps to the town to say, this is a referendum issue.
Yes, I think
And then
so.
that talks about, raising the millage rate to cover these costs. And is there enough community will, much less political will, to make that happen? That's a big question that the council is going to raise.
Yep, you bet it is. It's when you start talking about money.
Yep.
the only comment that I have seen from the public, negative comment on this, is basically, why are they spending all this money on Bay Oaks when we don't even have lighting in the town? Get us the lighting first, and then we'll be more willing to vote on this. I mean, those are the two comments that I have seen, and they all have to do with lighting.
Lighting.
Lighting
Is a big thing.
It is. It's very
bet.
important.
And the other, look at how the property values on this island have exponentially increased over the last couple of years. It is just absolutely phenomenal. So what that means is that with additional property values, there's additional income and revenue from taxes, from property taxes that will come into the town. So they will have more funding available to do these kinds of things that provide important amenities for the entire community. And I know the argument was made about Moorings Field, and so, okay, Moorings Field wanted this Bayside
Right.
Park but that only served a small number of people.
Right.
But when they said, oh, well, they had to live with it, the Moorings Field Committee, or I can't remember the name of that advisory board,
Anchorage Advisory.
Anchorage, and so they went with that project, and it was defunded, and so they now have to live with it. Well, council's thinking, we are presented with the same thing. We wanted this, and now the council's not going to let it happen, and we just have to live with it. I think it's different because the mooring field has a very small audience. We have a community, if not county-wide, what's the word I'm looking for? Presence. So, we serve a much larger number of people.
Yeah. The reason they told the mooring folks was because the people on the island said they didn't want to do it. We haven't had that reaction yet to our plan. There hasn't been this overwhelming outcry against our plan. There was on the mooring field. So you're comparing apples and oranges here, folks.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, like I said,
You haven't heard from the folks yet on this.
the only negative I've never read or heard on any of it, and it's just a few, it's the lighting.
Yeah, I've heard that
Be
too.
solved.
A friend of mine brings that up. It's, you know, I don't know that it's dominant action, but we need to find out. I'm not afraid of a referendum. Referendums are for public officials who are afraid to do too much after they get elected. But, you know, hey, you're a leader now, lead. People elected you, lead. But I'm not afraid of a referendum. I think as long as you have a massive public information campaign going on what it really is.
That's the key right there.
Not, yeah.
That'd be the bottom line.
Just you want a Cadillac or a Yugo. I don't like that. I don't like that. It came up at the last council meeting. You want the Cadillac. Not necessarily, but so yeah, you need a really good, strong public information. We're going to do that. Who does that? So who will do that? Who will initiate the strong public information?
Public information officer, but is that her role when in fact she works for council?
At the very least, someone who will see to it that our plan
It's followed up.
is well explained and well visualized. It's the most important thing.
Member? Or I can see if Amy has kind of the guidelines for board members, if you would
Would be
like.
helpful.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, because I've got a lot of friends. Until I came. Little League.
Wow.
You were a part of it.
Right.
Right.
After they left it,
But
you know, and if they had a little, you know, well, the ability to off the island, as well as whole.
Exactly. Good point.
Yeah. So that was another comment from a last council meeting. That people come to the beach to go to the beach. And, you know, sometimes it's so hard to overcome these, you know, this idea that Times Square is the end all of
Yep.
it's nonsense, because
It's a commercial construct.
I like, how many residents, year-round residents of this island, bound down to Times Square to hang out? They don't.
No.
They never have.
I've had cousins, relatives come stay for a week with their kids and say, I wish there was more to do besides just the beach on
Right,
this island, because there isn't,
you bet.
you know. So I think there's so much potential that they are, say people only come for the beach is thinking so small. And there's, you know, so much more that could be offered to people on vacation, to year-round residents. You know, there's really nothing for, I mean, I know a lot of it's directed towards senior citizens, but there's nothing for teenagers to really go and do on this beach.
Well, actually, I think Allison's done such a great job of offering those kayak tours at the Mount House.
Yes.
That, I've taken my grandkids and my kids there, and we've done tours, and it really is a great way, number one, obviously great for young people and kids and parents and seniors. And so it works for all levels, but also as a great alternative to the beach. But it also is a great way to let the visitors know what Mount House is all about. And hopefully Bay Oaks will be able to do the same.
Yes, more.
So Allison does great program to get people off the beach and into something else.
I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't even
See?
know that the, all over.
Yes, the Matanzas Pass
Oh,
Preserve.
yes,
I
yeah,
didn't know that was
I feel
there.
like the communication, really.
At Mount House.
yeah.
Observation pier. Yeah, I didn't even know that was there.
Oh, you mean the observation deck?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
Isn't that,
yeah.
what?
Well, it just recently reopened. It was closed for quite a while.
I didn't know it was.
Yeah. Holly, your point is your point. I grew up on the island in the 50s when I was a little kid. And a little kid.
But I
And,
didn't play baseball.
We didn't even have Little League in the early 50s. And we were constantly saying, there's nothing on this island for kids. We can't do anything. So it always interests me when I hear today's kids
Yeah, there's more today.
with 2 ball fields and a gym and you know, all the other amenities, saying the same things we said in the 50s.
Well, my son's in lots of activities, but he still can find board
Yeah.
time. And it's great to have a place to go that's safe. They're not just randomly riding around the beach.
Right.
They're not sitting at home playing, you know, in front of the TV. There's a place to go that's
Right.
safe and structured.
Right.
You know? And
Exactly.
We didn't
I
have
think
that.
this place has the potential for it. It's not being utilized.
Oh, we did. We had girls. Well structured.
What?
Had girls. That
Oh,
that
Garl was ground zero.
Here's a
Okay, well,
question
let's-
from left field, and I don't know if we can use any of this in our arguments, but is Margaritaville going to have a workout facility or gym facility or anything?
Not that I saw.
Me either. The reason I'm asking is that's going to bring a huge influx of people,
You bet.
and people work out when they're on vacation. They don't just run the beach. They want to have a
They wanna-
workout facility and that type of thing, and there could be something worked out, temporary passes, the same with Diamond Head, you know, for a fee. I mean, those,
Great idea, temporary passes,
while they
which
stay
could be
there.
promoted by the various hotels and restaurants.
Yeah.
You bet.
Exactly.
We
Wow,
had talked about that.
great
That-
idea.
That's a way
years ago, we talked about
to
that.
add to our, you know,
Yeah.
positioning of this.
Well, it's not so left field after all. It's right on the money, literally.
Bet. Okay, well, let's get back on our agenda.
So are we ready for this joint meeting, you think?
I do believe we are.
Oh, I think we are.
I
We've
feel very
talked about it
confident.
now for,
More confident than I did before this meeting.
yeah, me too.
I think we've coalesced a lot of the inconsistencies.
Looks like we need more than an hour. I may lobby the mayor.
If they have another meeting though, and so they don't have an
Town
option.
council meeting at 10.
Yeah.
They pushed back.
Okay,
the
so
town
we will
council
just
meeting.
have that 9 to 10
You can just,
spot.
But we could go from 8 to 10.
Agenda's already published with the time
Yeah,
starting
they
at
can't
9 a.m.
change it basically, yeah, because it's within a
Well,
week.
yeah, the time that starts doesn't mean that at the time it ends.
Oh, but they have the council meeting, and that's publicly announced. So we are
council meeting
confined to
with
that
us,
1 hour.
Having a
Right.
council meeting with us too.
Then we're going to be finished with that. Okay, well, let's move on with our agenda then. We're finished with item 5.
Obviously, this is more than 15-minute allocation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
About board items for our members. Anything? Beth, I'll start with you. Okay, Holly? Karen?
I voiced mine.
Lee? Barbara?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our future meeting dates, of course, are on there, 9 o'clock, and we know it's 9 to 10. So we'll be well aware of that. Then our next meeting is going to be February 2nd at our regular time at 9 o'clock in the chambers. So,
I do have one thing. I
Yes.
just thought of. So who would like to join Beach Talk Radio on Saturday? So Barbara, Lee, Ewan?
No.
No? Barbara?
What time do they go?
Holly? They go from 9 to 10. Beth, are you in? Okay, so for sure, it's Holly, Barbara, and myself.
and,
It's on a Pete's timeout.
okay. Barbara, are you able?
Oh, I've already committed.
Okay. And Karen,
Yes.
maybe, and Holly, did you say yes?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Hey, just out of curiosity, why not? I mean, if you're busy, you're busy, but I think you would add a lot of value. Having all of
Well, if you
us.
insist. No, I will try to get there.
Okay.
I will try to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, it's going to be the whole committee? Our committee?
Well, Beth is a maybe, Eddie is no. So it's basically Holly, Barbara, and myself for sure.
And possibly Lee.
And we'll only have 15 minutes, I mean, as a topic.
We could have the whole hour, according to Ed. We just have to tell him who's going to be there. If we're only going to speak 10 minutes each,
Right.
and that's only 30 minutes, then he's got another 30 to fill
I
with
think
other
10 minutes
guests.
for each person would be adequate, yeah.
I think so too.
Perfect.
Giving each person 10 minutes?
He'll give us anything. I came up with the 10 minutes. I just said that if we have to meet individually, if we have to be on ETR individually, I came up with the 10 minutes. If we can all meet together, you know, we can do, I mean, basically Ed said we have as long as we want. We have the whole show if we want it, but we also don't want him to have to provide fillers if we're not going to take the whole show.
Right.
And just to be clear, with regard to the Sunshine Law, virtually everything that we're going to be talking about, we've already voted on today, right? The Sanford Amphitheater, the, issues about budget, political will, engaging the community, all of those things are not in conflict with the Sunshine Law.
No, you can talk about your upcoming meeting with the town council.
We'll also ask the clerk's office to send out the guidelines to the board on the sunshine.
I think that's good
That's
for
a refresher for everyone.
Right.
in general, yes.
Maybe if the three of us are on there together, we take like 20 minutes of his hour program so that he has time to put other guests in.
Sure.
So it's not just all BORCAB.
Right, right.
Good.
That work?
I don't think, we don't want to do overkill. We don't want to, because maybe,
It's probably better if we're all there together as a united front
agreed.
as opposed to each individually. So let's just say we'll take the 9 to 9:20
Yeah,
spot,
yeah,
and then that way Ed can fill in the rest of his show.
perfect.
That's great. All right.
What are you going to say?
Sit on a bar stool.
If there isn't anything further to come before us, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Okay, Barbara? Second? Okay, Beth, thank you. We are adjourned at 10:44.
Karen, okay, what are you gonna say?
What am I going to say? I don't know. Ed's
All of
pretty
the
good at-
above.
Yeah, Ed's really good at leading us all through the whole thing when he's on board, so I don't think
Thank
we're
you,
going to
Allison. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I don't think we're going to have a
you,
problem
Betty.
filling the time.
You're welcome, thank
And
you.
obviously, you spent some time with staff kind of hatching out too. That, I appreciate that. It's very, very